Ever notice how pretty much every Predator sequel ends with a promise that's never kept, and then by the time the sequel rolls around, we've all forgotten about it? Seriously, it's a thing. We can all probably agree that the OG Predator is a pretty self-contained affair. If they'd never made another one, it would have been totally fine. There's no need for further closure in Dutch's story. But still, it goes without saying that we were all pretty shocked back in the day when they decided to cast Danny Glover as a protagonist in Predator 2 instead of Arnie. This casting choice isn't what actually bothers us though. Who doesn't love Danny Glover? What does bother us is the end sequence where Glover's Michael Harrigan jukes it out with the Predator and defeats it with its own smart disc. Turns out a few of its Yautja buds were watching the whole time, and they're so impressed with Harrigan's skills that one of them hands him a flintlock pistol as a reward.
Take it.
After the Predator's bail, a victorious Harrigan gives us what seems to be a pretty obvious hint that the alien menaces will be returning to Earth once again.
Don't worry, you'll get another chance.
But as every Predator fan knows, that definitely didn't happen. At least not in the way that Harrigan suggests. We didn't actually get a proper sequel until Predators in 2010. Yes, there were the Alien vs. Predator movies, but that's hardly the kind of follow-up this movie promised. And Predators doesn't even take place on Earth. It wasn't until The Predator was released in 2018 that we finally saw the Yautja make another return to our planet. So yeah, it took nearly 3 decades for Harrigan's little tease to actually pay off. That definitely counts as a lie in our book. Okay, now for Predators. This is when we experience the first official script flip in the franchise. Instead of Yautja causing mayhem on Earth, this time they snagged a ragtag group of humans and threw them into unknown territory in space somewhere.
This planet is a game preserve. And we're the game.
After they run into Morpheus, or we mean Noland, in the woods, they learn that there's a blood feud going down between regular Yautja and a group of much bigger ones. It's possible they may have been messing around with gene splicing or something of the like. Who knows? Doesn't matter a whole lot in the end. Only 2 of the humans end up surviving after the dust settles, and the movie concludes with them watching a bunch of parachutes appear in the sky and Royce saying,
"Now, let's find a way off this planet."
And that's the last we hear from them. Did they ever make it off the planet? What planet is it? Yautja Prime? Who are the other people parachuting down into the jungle? Is it a rescue squad? Is it just another batch of prey for the Yautja? This thing was screaming for a sequel, or at least some sort of closure, and we never got either. Back to the gene splicing thing. 2018's The Predator touched on this idea, but then basically did nothing with it. After a Predator crash lands on Earth, the main characters eventually learn that the Yautja have been splicing their own DNA with that of human beings.
Did you not see the new Predator? It's evolving.
Why have they been doing this? To become bigger, faster, stronger. The usual. In that case, why pick humans? And since climate change is basically a ticking time bomb, Yautja are hellbent on harvesting as many humans as they can before our entire species goes extinct. Okay, we can totally go with that. Why not? And in the final moments of the movie, we see that the Yautja took it upon themselves to leave humanity with a gift. A full-on armored suit that'll give humans more of an edge the next time they face off against them.
That's my new suit, Bubba. Hope they got it in the 42 long.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. But once again, they never followed up on any of this. Think of all they could have done with the idea of more developed Yautja human hybrids and an entire army of humans sporting reverse-engineered Yautja tech. They could have done a straight-up alien invasion movie, considering how the Yautja have been amping up their efforts to harvest as much human DNA as possible. Maybe. While the thought of Yautja engaging in all-out war instead of their usual solo cat-and-mouse hunts is almost unthinkable, you can't deny the possibilities there. This movie was far from well-reviewed, but let's just say we're definitely here for it if Dan Trachtenberg ever decides to tie up this particular loose end. Next, we have to talk about those cave drawings in the post-credit sequence of Prey. Remember those? The ones where we see some Yautja spacecraft return to harass the Comanche once again? This really makes us wonder, what exactly happened here? We know from the end of Killer of Killers that Naru eventually ends up getting kidnapped and put in stasis. But what led up to that? Naru is an amazing character, one that pretty much everyone loves. So why wouldn't we see her return to the screen to face off against the Yautja once more? Though we know that fighter pilot John Torres was scooped up pretty easily after he bested the Yautja in a dogfight, it just doesn't feel fair to merely imply that Naru suffered the same fate after all she went through to prove herself to her tribe.
There's danger nearby. We need to move to easier protected ground.
Just feels like there's a big part of the story missing, which isn't exactly a lie or a plot hole, but still can't not mention it. And that leads us to the whole post-credit sequence in Killer of Killers. This whole thing where we see Dutch, Harrigan, and Naru in suspended animation seems really intentional, right? Like they most definitely have plans to follow up on the idea of these three worthy protagonists teaming up to face off against Yautja in gladiatorial battle, or even some other completely unforeseen scenario. The sky is the limit really, since it would undoubtedly be another animated feature. Both Arnie and Danny are a bit too old to play younger versions of themselves, or we guess if they really wanted to go live action, they could write in an explanation for why the two dudes would age really quickly once they're taken out of stasis. Right? Is that sound? Anyway, it doesn't matter at this point. All that matters is that Trachtenberg teased a pretty fun concept at the end of Killer of Killers, and then just totally ignored it for the sake of Badlands. Speaking of Badlands, how can we not mention the final moments of that one? Here's your quick warning to click out if you haven't seen it yet and don't want to have the ending spoiled for you.
Well, good luck with your journey.
After returning to Yautja Prime to kill his father and take revenge for the brutal death of his brother, Dek is surprised to see none other than his own mother appear on the horizon. Definitely a fun twist that teases the premise of what could be a very promising and intriguing sequel. Is she pissed about him killing her man? Is she proud of him? Do Yautja parents even stick together after they have kids? Who knows? But as we've made very clear by this point in the video, you just can't trust the endings of Predator movies. Pretty much all of them propose a cool idea that just never really materializes. So while we're stoked about where this whole thing with Dek's mother might lead, we don't really have our hopes up. All criticism aside though, the real bottom line is that there will always be more time to follow up on most of the stuff we mentioned in this video. The franchise is technically almost 40 years old by this point, and it's still going strong. Everything Trachtenberg has done so far with the franchise has been incredibly well received, so the ball is for sure in his court when it comes to keeping both his own promises and the ones that were made before he took the helm. Okay, this last one might not matter as much to the folks who don't view the Alien vs. Predator movies as official canon, but it still needs to be mentioned regardless because of how ridiculous it is. The funny thing is that the first Alien vs. Predator movie actually does deliver on the promises made in its final moments. A xenomorph baby gestates in the dead predator and emerges as a Predalien hybrid in Alien vs. Predator Requiem. Good job, guys, you followed through with something. However, the ending of Requiem definitely left us with some questions that have yet to be answered. Remember how they choose to deal with the whole Predalien xenomorph problem? They drop a nuclear bomb on the entire dang town.
You bastards killed the entire town.
I'm just following orders.
We wouldn't necessarily put it past any government to take extreme measures in the case of a localized alien invasion, but what about the aftermath of such a catastrophic event? In America especially, this would end up being the story of the century, even if the government never explains the reasoning behind it. And no matter what their explanation is, it will bring about an endless series of consequences that reverberate throughout the country and the entire world. All of that being said, it's kind of crazy they never kept going with this thread, or even mention it in subsequent films. If they do briefly mention it in passing at some point, we don't remember it. Anyway, it's a potential plot continuation that almost writes itself. What a wasted opportunity.